show of hands, who here has been in sales? About half of you? Okay, let's go back even further. How many of you have been in an interview before, or even a first date? Everybody. Okay, I should hope so. Not a lot of spouses here, so you have multiple first dates. With that, what are you doing? What are you doing in those environments where you're on a first date or an interview? Selling yourself, exactly. You're selling yourself. You're putting yourself out there, and you're doing it strategically. You're not going to talk about your flaws. You're not going to talk about what's negative about you. You're going to be putting yourself in the best light possible and selling yourself as a value to that person or that audience. So in one realm or another, we've all been in sales.
So personal connection. With that, now what you'll find is that customers are not going to go out of their way to ask you probing questions to connect with you. That's not their motive today. Their motive is to come in and shop. It's up to you as a salesman to ask those probing questions, listen intently to your customers, and find opportunities to connect with your customers. The next level is determining a customer's needs. What's the best way to find out somebody's needs?
Ask questions.
Ask questions. It's as easy as that, all right? It's been said that the worst mistake a salesman can make is by sitting in their car before a sales meeting and going through everything that they're going to say in their mind 20 times, right? Because it's not about what you're going to say, it's what you're going to ask. The good salesman will go through all the questions they're going to ask to their customers. By strategically asking the right questions and determining the true needs of a customer, that gives you tools to use when closing your sales. Until you figure out what someone's needs are, you're not going to be able to sell them on the benefits of your product. I get a kick anytime I tell somebody that I'm in sales. They'll do something like pick up a rock and hand it to me and say, sell me this rock. The reality is nobody needs a rock. I can't sell you something you don't need. I could trick you into buying something, but to actually sell someone on a concept, you need to determine that their needs mesh up with the values of your product, right? Henry Ford, one of the greatest salesmen of all time, who actually sold the world on the idea that cars should be affordable and accessible to everybody, including the working class man, he said it's not the employer that pays the wages. The employer simply manages the money. It's the customers who pay the wages. Now with this crazy concept in mind, how do you think those salesmen, those shady, I believe sleazy was the word you used, sleazy salesmen, how should they have been treating their customers?
Like they were number one.
Like they were number one. They should have been treating these customers better than they treat their bosses, right? They're the ones who are putting food on their table. It's funny when you think about it because you've done the research, you know that you're in the market to buy a new car, you've driven to the car lot, but once you get there, all of a sudden it's as if you're behind enemy lines and you're using covert tactics to avoid being seen. When all reality, worst case scenario, you're going to get stuck in a conversation with somebody whose only job is to help you find the car that meets your needs. Right? So businessman was stressed out about his business. His business for the last few months had been failing and he was doing everything he could to try to keep this business afloat, but it wasn't working. So he went to the park. He realized that I needed to clear my mind before I made some pretty serious decisions as far as the future of his company. He went to the park, took a seat on a bench, and just kind of held his head, thinking about all the crucial decisions that he'd be making in the near future and the impact that it would have on his family, who no longer would have an income, and the families of his employees. As he's sitting there, an old man walks up to him. He sits down next to him and says, "Do you mind if I sit here?" And the businessman's a little distracted, but he says, "Sure, take a seat." After a few moments of silence, the old man tells this businessman, "What are you doing in this park? You're dressed in a suit, it's early in the afternoon, you don't belong here, and it appears that you've got a lot weighing on your mind." The businessman proceeds to tell this old man a little bit about what he's going through, the condition that his business is in, and really the dire situation that he's facing now. A life calling now to go throughout life helping businessmen in your situations who are trying to get through temporary tough times, you know. This old man then pulls out a checkbook. He writes the businessman a check for $500,000. He tells him, this is just a loan. This is a loan because what you need right now is you need a little bit of a pep to your company. You need to find some sort of motivator to push it back in the right direction. Now, being that it's a loan, I expect for you to meet me back here in this exact same location in 1 year from now and repay me the full amount. Well, this businessman's ecstatic. He shakes this man's hand and says, "This is great. You know, I'll go back to my company." His brain starts going a mile a minute thinking about all the opportunities he now has in front of him. The man signs the check, John D. Rockefeller.